Welcome to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today's Sunday, August 20th. Trying something a little different here, guys. Again, we came on for a brief time last night. For those of you who tried to catch the two live streams that we had yesterday that are list private, do not worry, you did not miss anything. We were just testing out some equipment here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. We're trying to update. We want to be a little bit ahead of what's going on, and on top of that as well, we also want to be a little more stimulating for visuals. We don't want the information to come off as dry and boring. So I will start here with a quick solar update. And today, according to SPACEWEATHER.com, our solar wind speeds are sitting at a 538.5 with a density of 10.4. AR2671 is almost directly earth facing right now. It has grown. Actually, it's a little bit smaller. A sunspot number today is 33. It's a large group. It's probably the biggest grouping we've had this year. It does harbor energy for M-class flares. I have not seen anything since the first day I reported on this about X-class flares. They did give it a slight chance of X-class flares when we first reported on AR2671. But I want you guys to notice too in the background here, no, I'm not, never mind. If you look on the screen, we've got AR2671 turning in earth facing right now, okay? So that's AR2671. If I can get a hang of this. This is new. All right, there we go. So there's 2671. I want you to look back here too. Lots of activity here on the back side. So it looks like we do have our next sunspot coming around the bend. Once this is earth facing, this one that's coming off the eastern limb right now could be here by the end of the week as far as earth facing goes. So we've got one earth facing now, and then we'll have likely another one within the next 5 to 7 days as well. And that's why I like the various models of the SDO to, again, you can see it bright as day here in this one. This one, I want to leave you here for a little bit, watching some amazing footage right now. Guys, look up to the northwest here and the northern limbs and the northeastern limbs. Watch up here. You're going to see some, look at that. Sun is very active, and I have to believe that that is associated with this next coming sunspot that we have coming around the bend here on the eastern limb. So something to watch there. I'm going to take a look at the KP indices here, and right now we've seen them off and on at 4 to 5 for the last couple days, due to the activity that we were seeing right now in the sun. We had a coronal hole that was in the northern equatorial region that is turning away from us right now, and we don't see anything as far as coronal holes go right now. So we look to be quiet on the coronal hole unless something does form here in the next couple days. But right now we're looking quiet. But our KP indices, what I wanted to get to on that was that we're sitting at 3 today, with a 24-hour max of 5. And like I said yesterday, I was looking at the KP indices chart, and we saw an up and down fluctuation of storm conditions, just hovering right around G1, nothing major or anything like that. All right, let's move along here next. I wanted to talk a little bit about what we have going on in the tropics. We've kind of lost focus on some of the weather events out here. We've got 3 different storm systems right now moving in. We have Invest 91. We have Tropical Storm Harvey, which I read something interesting, and the tremendous wind shear above Harvey is what's disorganized the storm. It's downgraded it. They are expecting some form of regeneration, but a lot of the storms that I was reading about here in the tropics today, a lot of them are becoming disorganized because of the wind shear they have above them. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, 3 storms, Invest 91, 92, and an unnamed tropical wave to watch, if you were wondering. It says here, I found a little quick article to give us a kind of a outlook on what's happening. The spaghetti models appear to have one turning away into the Atlantic. We have possible landfall chances in Florida, and right now we're looking at Mexico for sure, and then what happens after that. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm just pointing out where they are right now. We have 3 of them. It's been a while since we've had some action, and of course right now it's August 20th, and we're heading into the month of September. That is where we are going to see the peak of our activity as far as hurricane season goes. But if you here, I'm going to read real quick. As of Wednesday, the National Hurricane Center gave both Invest a 50% chance of development over the next 5 days. Most models put Invest 91 straight west into the Caribbean Sea, where conditions are not very favorable for development. Now it says here, conditions are better for Invest 92, and it is so far forecast to move northwest toward the tip of Florida. NHC does not expect upper level winds to tamp down the development of this one. So as I was talking earlier, we've seen a lot of action with high wind shear busting up these storms. So, and looking at the radar too, noticing last night when we did our brief little live hangout, if you look here north of us, and I'll just kind of point right here towards Florida, you see this system moving up to the north, and then you go back a little bit here to the Gulf of Mexico. Last night, this was a lot more active, and it was coming down up here from Texas, from a west to a south direction flow. That has calmed down a lot, so that is encouraging that there is a little bit of a break, because there was tons of moisture in the Gulf yesterday, and of course along the coast of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. The South has seen its share of rain today. So, and moving along, and this is kind of something new we're doing here. This is a live version of our hangout, but I wanted to get a little bit more interaction on Sundays, possibly in the mornings, kind of like, you know, get your Sunday morning coffee and talk about what's going on, current conditions, if there's any weather to report, and then just doing a little reading together. And today I found an article, and this is not going to help us, but this is going to prove our point and also help us identify information. Again, we are being misled, and by who else but a network by the name of CNN. And what I'm saying here, we hear a lot of people day by day talk to us about why global warming is going to continue to happen. You know, and then you see pictures of Al Gore normally that's associated with these claims of global warming. Listen, I'm not going to hang my hat on what Al Gore says. I've had John Casey to talk to. I've had Valentina Zarkova to talk to. The point of that, those two are talking about a grand solar minimum. Okay, they're not even mentioning, you know, of course John Casey has mentioned a cooler climate, but my point I'm trying to make is that when I want to talk about the climate, I'm going to trust people like John Casey and Valentina Zarkova to give me the information I need to understand my climate and our atmosphere and what's going on with the sun. Not a paid puppet like Al Gore, who makes a movie, Hollywood produced, dramatic music, tries to get people all ramped up and believing that this global warming is real, and it's worked. This Al Gore movie should be the #1 reason for this entire hoax, in my opinion. There's so many reasonable people I know that are intelligent, logical thinking people who are now convinced because of this sole movie that he put out. But anyway, I want to read here real quick from CNN now. This is their reporter. By the end of the century, the global temperature is likely to rise more than 2 degrees Celsius, which is 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. This rise in temperature is the ominous conclusion reached by 2 different studies using entirely different methods published in the journal Nature Climate Change on Monday. Now, one study, which they do have a link, and let's see what happens when you click on it. It goes to a website called nature.com. And it takes you to an article that was published. This is confusing. We're kind of doing this live right now. Mari, I just clicked on this article.
Yeah, it says unlikely, doesn't it?
So here's either this is an error.
Let's show them. Let's actually
put this on here.
And I'll put
Go
it
back
live
to the CNN first, because I want to show what I just did here.
That's funny.
This is crazy.
Let's see. Let me do my techie thing here. Oh. Okay, here we go.
And I apologize, guys. This is live. We're not trying to impress anybody with a produce here. We are average folk like you guys. But scroll down here to where it says one study. Show everybody
so the
on this.
Headline here says Earth to warm 2 degrees Celsius, end of this century, studies say. Jake, you're doing good for not even having 1 cup of coffee fully in you. I think you're doing
just go ahead and click on the one study thing there. I just want to show everybody. Now here's the article. Here. This is
so if people see this, see how it says one study?
Right. As I was reading to this point, this link right here.
Right there, I'm highlighting it.
Hold on.
So people can see it.
This article was getting ready to tell us that this study right here used statistical analysis to show that there is a 95% chance that the Earth will warm more than 2 degrees at century's end, and a 1% chance that it's below 1.5. Now, click on the one study, which is, here, I'll move, right by my head. Now, we clicked on this link. Bear with us. Now, you tell me, folks. This is the study that is supposed to tell us that the Earth is warming 2 degrees Celsius. But yet, this link takes you to a page that is published on the 31st of July of this year. And it states that the global temperature... here we go. I'm going to read the very top article, the paragraph
it's
here.
It's going to be higher than 2 degrees or 2 Celsius, or are they saying it's going to be lower in there? It's just the verbiage is twisted.
The verbiage looks to be twisted here, and I think this lady from CNN needs to do her research. The recently published IPCC projections to 2100 give likely ranges of global temperatures increase in 4 scenarios of population, economic growth, and carbon use. However, these projections are not based on a fully statistical approach. Here we use a country-specific version of Kaya's identity to develop a statistically based probabilistic forecast of CO2 emissions. It goes on to say that likely range of global increase is 2 degrees to 4.9. And a 5% of a chance it will be less than 2%. Population growth is not a major contributing factor. Our model is not business as usual scenario, but rather is based on data which already show the effect of emissions, mitigation policies, achieving the goal of less than 1.5 Celsius warming will require carbon intensity to decline much faster than recent past. And it goes on and on. It reads on about carbon emissions here, the different scenarios. But scroll back up for me, if you would mind. When you read this this title, less than 2 degrees warming by 2100, unlikely. Now I understand this was something to bait the opposition into reading. Instead of just coming out and saying, hello folks, we're going to see an increase of 2 degrees or more Celsius warming by 2100. But instead, they're playing games with us and leading us to a paper that would be confusing at first glance. Now reading it, I just realize I'm reading their data stating it's not going to warm more than 2 degrees, but between 2 and 4.9 Celsius within the year. So, and thanks for switching that back, because I had enough of that garbage. But the point I wanted to bring, I didn't even want to talk about that part of the article. I had no idea that that was going to happen. That's very unfortunate, and shame on CNN for playing tricks. But that's what happens when you click on the links to find out what the results of the studies are. You get sent to a page with a misleading title. And, you know, really, the average person may just say, well, they've got the wrong link here and not even read it. But the point of it, and the guy that wrote this, there was a quick quote here that I wanted to read off before I forget as well. They got a picture in here of Al Gore talking, you know, his Oscar is sitting right next to him. Where's this guy at? Where's this guy? Oh, here we go. This is what I would, even if we would stop burning fossil fuels today, then the earth would continue to warm slowly. This guy says Thorsten Marstein is the author of the second study. Now, I did a little research on this guy. Now that we've clicked on I didn't do any looking at the first study, and now that we have, I see that we come to this page that says nature.com. Okay, great. Mari, can you look at this page for me and tell me what does this mean when we hover on these names here? Does anything pop up for PhD qualifications or education? Does it? Let's see, this guy works at the Department of Atmospheric University. Okay, we got economics person, we got a stats person, we got upstart person, he's probably just a designer, and then statistics. So we got one guy in here, Dargan. Go to Dargan real quick for me. Dargan is the only person in the whole group that has any background on atmospheric. The rest of this is economics, statistics. Alec is a startup guy, and then you've got Department of Statistics. So the study is based on one person who is an expert in atmospheric scenario and sciences. So I did a little background check on, or a brief background check, I should say, on this author of the second study. And it was just to prove a point that, you know, I don't think, maybe these people aren't doing this on purpose. Maybe they're just not paying attention. He writes in one of his, what do you call it? Let's just call it entries, because I don't look at it as a very informal page. He's got these small graphs at the bottom. They're called, I don't know, they're not even called graphs. They're called something, but it doesn't make sense to me. There's not information that you can typically follow like you do on graphs. So I started clicking on some of these, citations. I got it right in front of me. So I guess citations must mean whatever the topic of the paper is. I'm not sure. He doesn't give a very good description in my opinion, but he has description, abstract. On average, airborne aerosol particles cool the Earth's surface directly by absorbing and scattering sunlight, and indirectly by influencing cloud reflectivity, lifetime thickness, or extent. Here we showed that over the Central Arctic Ocean, where there is frequently lack of aerosol particles upon which clouds may form, a small increase in aerosol loading may enhance cloudiness, thereby likely causing a climatology significant warming at the ice-covered Arctic surface under these low concentration conditions in clouds. And it says here total citations 86, cited by 86. I don't know what that means. But here we go. So, a couple things I want to pick apart on this. The very first part, airborne aerosol particles cool the Earth's surface directly. Well, here in the grand solar minimum, we have a weak magnetosphere. I've explained this several times, but we do. We have a very weak magnetosphere. It continues to weaken as the sun weakens. Now, right now, we are seeing an increased amount of highly charged particles. And knowing what I know about Birkeland currents and how they enter our planet, and that's where most of our solar wind stream comes, as far as particles, highly charged particles enter from that region as well. So I find it hard to believe that there is a lack of particles in our atmosphere near the Arctic, and I'd like to research a little further into this, because I also have read other articles where they're saying that the Arctic and Greenland and Iceland, all their ice right now is increasingly big time. So, and that almost sounded like Donald Trump there, bigly. It was bigly increasing. But, so that was the first thing I saw. Well, he's acknowledging that particles cool the atmosphere. Well, not only that, but they seed our clouds and they create more cloud coverage. And then he talked about how absorbing, scattering sunlight indirectly by influencing cloud reflectivity. Well, talking about that real quick. When we have lower TSI already, we have increased cloud coverage. Okay, so whatever total solar radiance is trying to reach our planet is going to be reflected back into space in regions right now. I'm not saying this is a global event yet. We haven't preached that at the grand solar minimum. We've acknowledged that there's regions right now that are heating up like the dickens. And then there's regions right now that are seeing record cold temperatures. Lee has discussed how we go through a yin and a yang as far as the climate conditions right now, especially right now during this grand solar minimum. And there was one other thing, I guess the fact that, you know, here we have another guy who believes that we're warming, but he acknowledges the existence of particles and what they do to the atmosphere. So he forgets to mention about the increased amount of particles that we have in our atmosphere due to our weaker magnetosphere because of what's happening in the grand solar minimum. And I really shouldn't say it's scary, but it kind of is for me, is that this is only the beginning. As weak as everything is right now, the magnetosphere, 2019 is, you know, is officially the beginning of cycle 25, cycle 25. And that's when we're supposed to see 50 sunspots for the entire year, peak. Maybe less. So, again, try in an age right now where you can get on the internet and type in anything you want in the search bar and you can find an answer to it. It really doesn't even have to be the right answer, and that's the unfortunate part. And people are saying, well, why should we listen to you then? Why does this channel have the right answers? I'm not saying we have all the right answers, but the grand solar minimum is a history-based research type of subject. And all the things that we find data on that are recorded, that we go look up, are based on several things. The obvious is the ice cores. I mean, that's the obvious. Then we have your tree rings, and you also have sediments that you can pull. You can also drill cores in the bottom of the ocean floors as well. So there are so many ways that science can detect these temperature anomalies, our climate change. And like I said, it's all history based, and we're basing everything that we're seeing right now and comparing it to past grand solar minimums, and then looking at the climate that our grand solar minimum had brought in during these times, and they're matching up. And some of you may live in parts of this country in the United States where it's hot. It's been hot all year. That's fine. Again, we're not saying we're going to freeze up tomorrow. This is going to be a very slow process, but we are going to start seeing some changes as we have already with all the flooding here in the United States. We're looking right now for current crop loss numbers, but every time we report or look up a storm that came through the area, we're seeing 80% of the crops destroyed. So when you're seeing those kind of numbers, well, how many more of these storms can we endure? I mean, I understand it's just a small region right now of crops that are lost, but over time, how much more of that can we endure before we start to become, a problem with our crops, with food? Ice Age Farmer brought up a very good article a couple months ago about the owner of Amazon buying up the largest organic food distributor. I don't like it when things like that happen, because this man's very rich and powerful, and now he controls a good portion of our food supply. So people got to be aware of things like that as well. All right, that's all I wanted to talk about today. This was just supposed to be a short 10-15 minute one, and I started rambling, but I ran into a couple things on this article from CNN. And my point is that a lot of people don't trust CNN. Even if you're not a supporter of the president, a lot of people already knew that CNN was garbage. They're very, very leftist, and I have seen some shocking statements made by this network. But when I see articles from their reporters who include studies like this one, where there's nobody that's even qualified to speak about the climate except one person, and he's an atmospheric person, the rest of them are statistics. I mean, they're looking at the charts entirely wrong. It's like they're not even using the science information to make their predictions. I don't know where they come up with the rise. History has made itself known that every grand solar minimum.
They're flat out solely riding on the fact about CO2, and they're not looking at anything else.
The problem with that is there's been too many legislations that's passed, that's in place right now, and if they all of a sudden just pull the plug on all these CO2 tax bills, whatever they got in place right now that's supposed to reduce emissions. Look, I'm not saying we don't need to save our environment, our ozone layer, all that stuff is important as well, and I do believe that man-made gases create problems for our atmosphere. So I'm not saying that these aren't good practices, but they're using the CO2 thing to scare people into thinking that we're just going to heat up. And I think Mari and I, from here on out, we want to make sure that there's no more misleading going on. We want to help people clear it up, make sure that they understand the truth and how the information that they're presenting us is absolutely false. Like I said, grand solar minimums historically show a cooling trend, and for them to say that we're going to rise almost 5 degrees Celsius in 100 years is, to me, that's just irresponsible and reckless reporting. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for tuning in for this Sunday morning edition. We'll be back tonight at 9:30 with Lee Wheelbarger in the Big Picture. Take care, guys.